Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Impact Farming Show. Today, we have the amazing Trent Loos. How are you?
Never better. How about you?
I am doing fantastic and so happy to have you on my show. I am just pumped, thrilled to be talking to you. I don't even think Trent needs any introduction, but for those of you guys that don't know him, sixth generation United States rancher from Hazard, Nebraska, dad, husband, educator of the global consumer, and host of Loos Tales on Rural Root Radio. Trent.
You said that very Canadian, Tracy. Rural route radio or rural route radio. And I get in big discussions about which way is right. Neither way is right. Both ways are right. It doesn't matter. But this is how the world works. I reached out to you, asked you for an interview, and here we are doing your show instead of you doing my show. How does this work?
I'm pretty persuasive, I guess. But
Okay,
on the
next
American
week.
Canadian thing, we could talk about what's on the top of the house, a roof, and a boat or a boot. How do you say
Oh,
roof?
roof.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, the biggest one thing that I had to, my friend Wendell Shum, do you know Wendell Shum from Ontario?
No.
You should know Wendell Shum. Been doing a podcast for quite some time. The very first time he was on a radio or podcast, he was taking me back to the airport in Toronto, and I had a show, a roll route. I had to do an hour-long show, and I had to get back to the airport. So we did it while Wendell was driving. It worked out great. But Wendell taught me that hydro is not necessarily water, because you guys have your hydro expenses in Canada, and we call it our electric bill.
Mm, yep. Lots of differences, but lots of similarities, right?
Oh, we're just all cousins. And I've spoken in Canada a lot. I've got tremendous friends from Ontario all the way to, I don't know if I want to include British Columbia, but I've spoken several times in British Columbia. But, Saskatchewan, that's my favorite province, by the way. But it's just amazing how much we have in common. But I am a little embarrassed because you all do a better job keeping track of what's going on in the United States when until this clown you got now in Ottawa, nobody who knew when Mike Harper was prime minister, nobody even knew who he was in the United States. It's like we need to be better informed about our neighbors, particularly our best allies and our best neighbors.
I agree. We used to do, I agree. I mean, it's all relative. My husband and I, we used to have a outfitting business and we'd take Americans hunting. And it
Sure.
was pretty funny. Of course, we keep track of what's going on down there for the most part. Probably not everybody, but same thing with the Americans. They're like, "What? Where is that at?" They didn't know, but you know what? That's a big blanket statement for Canadians and Americans. I
No,
think
but it's true. If you are no stereotypes, I've never been to Canada when I didn't come back perplexed on how much everybody knows about what's going on. Now more than I do, because I don't pay attention to major media outlets. I just live by the people I know personally.
mm, amen to that. Amen to that. I try and keep that news off.
But
Okay,
I
well,
can drive myself to Starbuck, Manitoba, which I've done several times. That's a good place.
yeah, beautiful. Open cropland. I am about, I'd say about an hour and 15 from there, closer to where I grew up, and I'm in
Sure.
bush cattle country. They're big open prairies over there.
See, that's closer to Saskatchewan, and I'll tell everybody it's my favorite province. Spoken Swift Current several years in a row too. Those are great places. But all the way from Moose Jaw. Well, you can start at Regina and go all the way down to Swift Current. It's just gorgeous country.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. It's a beautiful place. Okay, Trent, I am so
Was
excited.
any of that on your itinerary that what we were going to discuss? Because I
Okay,
love keeping you off track and see how far I can keep you away from what you thought we were going to talk about.
you're talking to a lady here, and we are known for taking rabbit trails, grabbing it back,
Cool.
and refocusing. So I'm good. And I also know that you love a good story and a good chat. So I was expecting this. So
Okay.
you're not going to throw me off. Well, you could try.
Oh, throw the gauntlet down. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I shouldn't tempt you, eh? So I am curious. Everybody knows who you are. They know your program. I'd imagine a lot of our audience knows what you're about. But let's back up now that I have you on the
Mhm.
show. Tell me your story on how you grew up and you were on a ranch. How did that turn into the start of your career? I'm curious about that.
So I didn't grow up on a ranch,
Oh,
and
okay.
this is a wonderful discussion, actually, Tracy. My family, we'll start in 1832. Is that
Okay.
back far enough? My
Excellent.
family left Germany in 1832 and migrated to west central Illinois, 100 miles straight north of St. Louis, Adams County, Illinois, to be exact, and just 7 miles off the Mississippi River. And so I grew up on a farm. And I said the great story is the discussion between, are you a farmer or are you a rancher? Well, we don't till the soil today. We just have pigs, cattle, and horses, and we're grazing. And so we consider ourselves ranchers. But my family has been taking care of the same land in Adams County, Illinois since 1832. In 1988, I saw the writing on the wall and I could tell that Illinois wasn't really for my future. So I left the family's operation. We lost my father 6 years ago to Alzheimer's. I have a sister who has a son who just loves his uncle, which much to my sister's chagrin. And so he will be the seventh generation to take care of that land in Adams County, Illinois. My wife, Kelly, of 30 years, she grew up in the county that we currently ranch in, but we first lived in Missouri, and then we moved to South Dakota on the Indian Reservation and the Rosebud Indian Reservation for 5 years. And then in 2002, when our middle daughter was born, we came back here to, I say we came back because I had never actually lived in Sherman County, but we had bull sales here in Sherman County, and I really enjoyed the atmosphere in central Nebraska. Most importantly, Tracy, we have now 3 daughters, and I do not think it should be a treat for your kids to see their grandparents.
Mm.
What I mean by that is that, I grew up with 2 sets of grandparents within 15 miles. So it was a treat, but you got to do it on a regular basis. We have so many kids growing up hours and hundreds of miles from their grandparents that they don't get to truly experience a day in and day out interaction with grandparents. And I think that's changed society. So we made the decision in 2002 to move back to the county that Kelly grew up in, and we live 12 miles from her parents. And we have our own separate operation in terms of cattle and pigs and horses, but they're both 84 now. And so fortunately, we are able to assist when we need to with their cattle, and it's just a great relationship. So that is the ranching side of what we do. While we were living on the Rosebud Reservation in 2000, I recognized that people were getting bad information about who, where, and how is producing their food. So I literally just walked into a guy's radio studio one day in Spearfish, South Dakota. His name is Jim Thompson. And I said, Jim, my name is Trent Loos, sixth generation United States farmer, and I want my own radio show. He laughed at me. And then I sat down and he said, Oh, you're serious? I said, Sir, I'm not leaving until we get a deal. In October of 2000, Jim and I began producing a program together. And in January of 2001, I began producing Loos Tales. And today, Loos Tales can be heard on 100 radio stations in 21 states in the United States, plus what's going on the World Wide Web. And I actually do 5 TV shows, excuse me, 5 radio shows every day, 2 TV shows. And the concept is always the same. What can we do to protect a domestic supply of food and fuel? Because these are the utmost important essentials for domestic security.
Fantastic. I love it. Thank you. There's so
And
much there. I actually half want to toss what I wanted to ask you. And
wait a minute. You gave me the challenge that I couldn't do that. So you're willingly to go do it. That's going to make it less fun.
okay, I'm focusing. I got to win this. Not competitive at all.
Put your arm on the table, Tracy.
Yeah,
We're going to
let's do
go.
this. Let's do this. Come on. Oh, no, actually, I will go there really quick. That was a very neat comment that you made about not growing up around your grandparents and it changing the fabric of society. I have quite a few thoughts on that, and I'm sure a lot of people watching society nowadays do. That's a very neat observation. I like that.
And we created that. we created that because in the 80s during the farm crisis, which is the United States and a Canadian thing, we had parents telling their sons and daughters, don't come back to the farm, go to the ag school and go into ag finance or go into ag business or go be an ag teacher. Don't come back to the farm. And so then we push them into this corporate agricultural environment in which they get transferred around the country. They just got a great new job in Tyler, Texas, even though they grew up in Great Bend, Kansas. So now you're 6 hours from grandparents, and we're continuing to chase this dream for a better way of life. And at some point in time, every single person I meet in that situation, and I meet those people in Johnson County, Kansas, as often as anywhere, and you might wonder why there, because Johnson County, Kansas tended to be one of the first hubs for ag corporations. And young families meet in K-State, whatever that university may be. They move into Johnson County, Kansas. And by the time that they've been there 10 years, they got 2 kids. You know what they want? They want to go back and raise their kids in the same way that they grew up. But they were told that they wanted to have 2.3 kids and live in this great urban environment, a great job, and get paid well and have a white picket fence. The problem is the white picket fence becomes this barrier that they're afraid to cross and go back and raise their kids in the way they grew up. And I have seen that progression from the mid 80s until today in 2024. And I think there's been a great price to pay for that.
I think we should start a show titled, what would we we got to come up with a name for it, but talking about the fundamentals of society and a
Hmm.
lot of those concepts. That's actually stuff I usually don't talk about on my show, but stuff I talk about with my husband, and I go, okay, where this, that, and how it's changed society. And actually, you know what? I'll grab us back, Trent. I'm grabbing us back, grabbing myself.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
but no, before you grab us back, I'm
sure.
going to say that I woke up this morning thinking, I really don't spend enough time talking to my computer. I sure hope Tracy has an idea on a new program we can do together so that I can fill a void that I've been having.
Fine, I'll do the program myself. I'll talk to myself. Um,
No, you're not going to do this without me.
I can do it without you. I can do it. It'd be better with
I
you,
know
but I
you
can do it
can.
without. Um,
Yeah.
Here we go. Let's brain us back, and I'm sure we'll come back there again
Okay.
because I want to chat with you about some of the things that you see as the biggest threat to the agriculture industry. And I have a feeling maybe some of this will weave its way back in, but I
Okay.
want to pick your brain a little bit about educating the consumer. We'll go back there first. That's been your entire career, what you do to this day.
Hmm.
What have you found as your biggest wins, your thoughts, some shot? I'm going to make a big, broad category here. Take it where you want. Some of your stories where you either laughed about consumers, about how out of touch they are. What's been some of the rewards and fun stuff from being on the road, talking to consumers, educating them?
Clearly, the story that comes back to me, there's two. One I use every time I speak, which I did this week in Albany, New York. Another one that is the most humorous conversation I've ever had, and yet depicts how sad this whole situation is. So I'll tell you the one from the airplane first. When you get on an airplane looking like this, because I look like this 24/7, 365 days a year, people often wonder what you're up to, and if you're actually just headed to Hollywood to try out for the next Tombstone movie. They wonder what's going on because they don't recognize that people dress like this for a reason and do it regularly. So, and they don't fly a lot. And then when they fly, they want to try to blend in so they don't look like everybody else. Well, I'm just me. So this is how it is. And this lady sitting next to me started to ask, what do you do? And I said, well, I ranch. My wife and I, we raise cattle and pigs and horses. Oh, I love ranching. Farmers and ranchers, they're so cool. I wish I could spend more time with them. But I got to tell you, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat animals. Well, except for chicken wings. I eat chicken wings. That that's the strangest thing somebody's ever told me, that they're a vegetarian except for chicken wings. Why would you refrain from eating chicken wings? Well, because I feel sorry for the animals, but I know that if I eat the wing, the chicken can grow a wing back.
Oh, this gets better and better. Wow. Wow.
And she's serious. So we have this whole discussion about how the chicken wing doesn't actually come off the chicken until it's dead. And I spent a lot of time talking about death because the overall premise here of what we have failed to understand is that everything lives, everything dies. And only with death we give life purpose. And so death with a purpose gives full meaning to life. And there's a concept in there that is completely lost with people. There's not a plant, there's no living thing that lives and continues to live without something else dying. And when you start having that conversation with somebody that just said they eat chicken wings only because a chicken can grow its wing back, you get a lot of blank stares. But my plan is quite simple. I want to just plant seeds that they will then go find a way to germinate. And if I have the ability to maintain communication with somebody, I will, just to continue to foster that germination and get people to think about things in a way that they've never thought about them before.
Love it. That's quite the story. Do you think we as an industry are making progress educating the consumer, connecting with them, or do you think the divide's getting bigger and bigger?
The divide's bigger and bigger. The only thing that brought it closer was COVID,
Mm.
because through the government reaction and things that happened and the restriction of government and people, like dumping milk, like the situation where, we had this Canada, you've got that quota on the milk system, quota on milk and chickens, to be honest, but the one on milk causes more problem. But we had producers dumping milk. Meanwhile, they're still bringing milk in from Canada to Wisconsin. That, because that was in the news, that caused more uh, desire for the consumer to say, hey, I need to know more about where my food is coming from. But the reason I say that it's growing wider is I am constantly talking to people who tell me they want to know their producer, they want to get to know where their food comes from, and they want to buy from local, they want to buy regional, because we must move to regional based food systems instead of what we have now, which is corporations completely dominating everything, where you have Walmart and Costco controlling 60% of all retail grocery sales. But the very same people, Tracy, who tell me that they want to be a part of a food system go to where food is most affordable, the cheapest, and most convenient. And that is not going to be in the same places that are going to be there when the chips are down and you need somebody to be producing your bacon in the local area. So we've got to start thinking about these things. And until we hit them in the pocketbook, it doesn't really seem to resonate. That's the only thing there's two things that resonates. You don't have enough money to buy food and ultimately end up with your belly button banging your backbone. When you get to that point, then you have their attention. Until then, you're just kind of like separating the cream from the rest of the milk, because you're getting a few people that are really focused and zoned in on what it takes to preserve their family and their community, and the rest just go into making powdered milk. It's a scenario that is so hard to believe. And now, I've been doing this for 24 years, really geared towards food. All started because of what I saw happening in the animal rights community. But what has happened in the energy sector, it's now more dire than what's happening in the agricultural and food sector, because without electricity, without diesel fuel, food production ceased to exist as we know it today.
Oh, Trent. Oh, you're getting my you're getting my feisty French going with a lot of this. There's so much and such a disconnect on so many subjects. Agriculture, the two foundations of a society, energy and food, and the disconnect and the misinformation and I'll pause on that word for a second. But when you go, I'm very fortunate to live on a farm. I know
Mhm.
farmers, surrounded by farming, but I also have the pleasure of putting on a suit, putting on whatever I want to wear that day, and walking into a corporate environment because those are my clients. That's who I deal with. I attend these conferences. And I was actually just at one the other day, and they were talking about sustainable egg,
It's off
fertilizer
to a great
reduction.
start.
Yeah, well, mm, fertilizer reduction
Yeah.
and pretty much the gentleman gave the presentation. This was not a farmer directed conference. I was probably the only one mingling. The the gentleman from the university gave the presentation, blamed agriculture for all all of the emissions and everything, said that farmers need to reduce their fertilizer and they won't get paid, and somehow we'll figure out how to pay them. And really all farmers care about is their holidays. So they're just anyways, I could go on and on. So when I'm talking to you about this, and you're pretty much there already, but I want to talk to you about what you see as the biggest threats to agriculture. And when I just come and I'm talking to you right off the back of one of those conferences, I'm like, oh my goodness, how do we even make an impact? So, questions.
Uh, our biggest threat to agriculture, ourself,
Oh, do
because
share.
while we continue to complain about the policies that are enacted upon us, we are taking a greater percentage of farm subsidies than ever before in both your country, my country, and that's what's going on in France, Germany, and Italy right now. Is that the farmers realize we made a mistake. We wish we could go back, because by taking these subsidies and telling us what to do with our land, they are putting us out of business. We still have a fighting chance, but I've never seen an acceleration of willingness to accept payment for something you're not doing like I've seen in the past 12 months. And if we don't stop doing that, we will be the EU all over again, which we've spent so many years complaining about how they over subsidize their farmers. So until we decide that we're not going to take payment for something that we didn't do, we'll continue to be part of the problem.
I love it. In this session, the gentleman presented the farmers need to reduce their fertilizer, and we'll leave that.
Yep.
We'll leave that for a moment. And he said the production will go down. We don't know how we'll pay the farmers, but likely it's going to be carbon credits or subsidies.
Mhm.
And then in the second breath, he said to the audience of city people and probably one farmer, he said, and for some reason, the farmers are against this. So I like the fact about the subsidies, just because you look at that, I'm like, if that's what we're going to do, we're going to become even more dependent on the government. And that's not my jam in life. And you look at, and I know this will be on your radar too, some of the conservation programs on land. I interviewed Margaret and uh,
Byfield.
yeah, thank you, for the 30 by 30 land grab. And she was talking about subsidies there on the
Mhm.
land. The farmers get used to it. We tie up our land. And so, anyways,
The first 7 states that heard about 30 by 30 in the Biden initiative, which is not a Biden initiative, it came out of the United Nations. Margaret and I had meetings, producer meetings in 7 states explaining the challenges that were taking place. And that was in March and April of 2021. That's how long we've been working on this.
wow. Okay, I didn't know. There's so many great people doing their part in trying to spread awareness, but I don't think a lot of people know about these things. Hence, actually, why I just wanted to talk to you. You say it how it is, Brent.
Yeah.
Trent, sorry.
N-
Tell us
Now,
how it is, right?
well, now I've had the great opportunity to speak to people in 43 states about 30 by 30, and they were not agricultural people. They were people that just showed up at events for liberty and freedom. Faith, family, and freedom was what was on their mind. And I talked about Executive Order 18009, which was signed January 27th, 2021, which Joe Biden said that 30% of the land and water would be returned to its natural state by 2030. Now, if you think about what we've accomplished in taking land from its natural state to an improved state, I'm talking about improved soil health, I'm talking about improved soil moisture holding capacity. Because in 1900s, everybody perceives, Tracy, that in the old days things were better, but in 1900 it required 10 acres of land to produce enough food to feed one person for a year. Today, it takes less than a third of an acre. And most of that advancement and innovation came because of something called diesel fuel. Because diesel fuel, 1 gallon of diesel fuel will remove 5,000, 500 hours of food labor production. And what does that mean? That means you have to go hoe a row if you don't have diesel fuel to run your tractor. And if you're not growing a garden, you don't understand what that actually means. 500 man hours of food labor production were taken away when we had diesel fuel to generate food, and less than a third of an acre to generate enough food to feed one person for a year today. Those are the advancements and why we do not want to return land and water to its natural state, because we've made massive improvements. And think about water. Just think about the whole concept of water. Its natural state had no irrigation. What we've been able to accomplish in the food production areas of the United States, more so than in your country, because you don't have widespread irrigation throughout most of the farm country, but we have been able to capitalize on this water and get the exact amount of water when we need it, where we need it, to generate the maximum yield with the inputs that we have. None of that can be accomplished if you have your water back to its natural state. Consequently, because of initiatives like 30 by 30, let's talk about the latest debacle that the U.S. government's brought about. Klamath River in southwest Oregon and northwest California. Klamath River, 100 years ago this year, farmers ponied up and built 4 dams in the Klamath River to do two things: to use the dams to capture electricity to make life better, and to use the water to irrigate their crops. We have now spent billions of dollars in 2023, 2024, knocking those dams out. And they did that because they said, well, the salmon need to be able to swim upriver and make sure that they can get up to where they can naturally spawn. Really? The dams have been there for 100 years. And now you're worried about trying to save the salmon? I think if the dams were a problem, they would have died a couple of days ago. You know what the latest debacle is on the Klamath River? They have pictures of deer dying because the deer are going back into the previously a lake where the dam was holding it up as a lake. The deer are dying because they're going into these murky areas that used to have water. Now they're looking for water, dehydrated. And guess what's right there alongside the deer dying? A bunch of salmon that died. And people fall prey to the fact that somehow a dam was opposed to true conservation. The term conservation is just like sustainability. They both have been hijacked by people who want to control your food. When they start talking about meeting their sustainable goals, what that means is they want to tell you when, how, and where you're going to eat. And that must stop now.
Oh, say it like it is. That's why I was excited for this episode. There's not enough people talking about this. There really is.
Well, all you really need to be is a student of history. I don't know if you want to, how far you want to go back. We could go back. The entire Bible talks about man-caused famine before you get to Revelations. You can go look at what happened in the Roman Empire. Look at what happened to the Mayans. I mean, you can go to every civilization. You can just talk about more modern day. Look at what happened to the Bolsheviks and before the Bolshevik Revolution, and what Lenin and Stalin did to starve 60 million people because they told them, no, you no longer have things on your own. You're now going to work for the government in producing food. We just relive and walk down these paths that we've already walked down, but because we didn't read about what's ahead, we don't pay attention.
Yeah.
So before your belly button is banging against your backbone, I suggest you pay attention. Listen to Tracy every day, and Tracy and Trent as they come up with this new across the border concept.
This new, yeah, our show, that'd be great. You know, the weird part is, I think a lot of people have not read history. They've also taken, from what I've heard, they've taken history out of the history books in school. And here's my thought: times have been good in my life,
Mhm.
your life. We've had some really good times. People don't, in our first world country here, we don't want for much. And it's really hard to believe, I think, for most people, that there are people out there that might want us to starve and might want to take away all this freedom and security and choice that we've had. I don't think that resonates with a lot of people.
I mentioned that I just got home from New York and had a fantastic meeting. And obviously, the sustainability index was the top of mind for most people. It should be about how can we be better, efficient producers, but we've been lured into this path again by a subsidy payment through the Inflation Reduction Act. But before I went to my conference, I went to the restaurant within the hotel complex that we were staying, and they had a breakfast buffet for $24. And I just think that that's a lot of money for a couple of eggs and bacon because that's my breakfast. I eat 3 eggs and bacon every day. So I told the pleasant young lady who was waiting on me, I said, no, I'll just have 3 eggs and bacon. No sides, just 3 eggs and bacon and coffee. Okay. Well, I got my bill, and it would have been cheaper to go with the whole buffet because it was $37.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And I've been in Florida, I've been in Pennsylvania, I've been in New York, and I've been in one other East Coast city since January 1. Food inflation is beginning to take effect, and people aren't paying attention. I had 3 eggs, and those 3 eggs cost $17. I can buy a dozen eggs for $3.
Yeah.
And yet for 3 eggs is $17 in the restaurant. And at some point, people got to say, what's causing this? Why is this happening? Why am I paying more for these things that I should not be paying more for? And until we start doing that, we continue to head down this happy jelly path. I mean, right now, nothing really matters other than will Taylor Swift actually make it home for the Super Bowl? That's the main thing I care about.
Yeah. I know. We'd have a gay old time on our program.
Whether Tracy, I don't know whether the Super Bowl is coming up or just happened. But anyway, my point is we're caring more about what she's going to get there to see her boyfriend than where's my food going to come from and what's happening to the local producers. And why did Amos Miller, an Amish farmer in Pennsylvania, get his farm raided for the second time in 5 years because he was selling direct to the consumer? Why did that happen? And how do I make sure I have access to food? These are the questions we should be asking.
Ooh, I love it. You know what? And I think we both know it's purposely done to distract. It's funny. I wake up, I'm like, what's the distraction of the day, the show of the day, right? Because they want us paying attention to stuff that doesn't matter. So we're not
Hmm.
distracted on how bad it really is. What is the saying? Bread and circuses? Have you
Yeah,
ever heard that one? Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing. Bread and circuses. I see something. I don't watch TV, but I see it social media. I'm like, bread and circuses. Come on, people, focus, or else we're all going to starve soon. Oh,
Well, that again, I don't give anybody a free pass. That's on us. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You have to make the water in a flavor that they want to take a drink. We've not done a very good job explaining how important this is. And mostly because when you start talking about these things, there's a percentage of the people that say, what a wackadoodle that Loos is. Well, I don't care what you call me anymore because the time is now that you understand where the essentials of life are coming from.
yeah, I agree. Okay, threats against agriculture. We talk about energy, which goes hand in hand, obviously, with agriculture. We talk about us taking subsidies. We talk about things like 30 by 30. Oh, sustainable ag and that initiative, I think, is a big threat. Is there anything else that you want to add? I think we could really, truly talk for hours.
Oh, we absolutely could. And there are tons of them, but there are none of them that parallel what's going on in the energy sector
Okay.
because we are, well, let's give you an example. In 2007, we hit the peak in the US coal-fired power plants generating electricity. Just short of 60% of electricity came from coal-fired power plants. I remember that year and that number because I spoke for my first time to a group, the Lignite Energy Council in North Dakota. And they said, we want a cowboy to come and talk to us about cows. And there were people who were like, why would we have a guy that knows cows come and talk to us? And I remember so clearly my message that day. My message was the risk and the future of the coal business is divide and conquer. And they're like, because what was the message coming from all government entities starting in about 2000? If you're going to have a coal-fired power plant, you got to scrub the emissions. You got to have this $1 million apparatus in your smokestacks and make sure that you get the sulfur oxide and the nitrous oxide and the CO2 out of the atmosphere. So there were plants, there were coal-fired power plants that invested millions of dollars. And then they started talking about, well, we're clean energy. We're clean coal, unlike that dirty coal. Really? You can't talk about that's like saying I'm organic beef producer, not that bad conventional beef producer. If you start picking on one of the segments within your sector, you're going to be on the table at some point in time to be executed as well. So in 2007, we have maximum energy produced from coal-fired power plants at about 57%. Again, US. I can talk about the US because these numbers come directly from the Department of Energy. And the Department of Energy also says that in that period of time, coal-fired power plants reduced from 1989 until 2022. Coal-fired power plants, because of their scrubbing, reduced 27% of all CO2 emissions, reduced 87% of all of their nitrous oxide emissions, and 92% of their sulfur oxide emissions. So if these coal-fired power plants did exactly what they were supposed to in terms of reducing the emissions, they're good to go, right? No, no. They've gone from 57% of the electric provided by coal-fired power plants to this year 23%. And they're talking about eliminating the last 23% because they never planned on the coal-fired power plant getting better. They just wanted to find a way to get rid of them. Food production is no different. And if we don't stop divide and conquer within our own industries, within our own sectors, we become the next story about, but it was a great idea when we had it, but too bad they just didn't understand. No, we fall prey to these people that want to control everything that we have.
Yes, I agree. In Canada here, our energy industry has been under attack, been destroyed, and they are just hell bent, pardon my language, on putting the final coffins in it. It's unbelievable. And here, Trent, give me give me some hope. I sit here and I try and do my piece. Of course, I can do better and do more, speaking to the consumer. But when you are working against the machine, the corporations that own all the companies and own all the media, some of us may know that, some may not. How? How do we how? How do we go up against that and try and share truth and reality?
So our youngest daughter is studying psychology. She's in college. And she was giving me her latest lesson, which I think everybody understands, but she put it into just practical terms. Every action causes a reaction. That's what psychology is about. And and I love the way that you talked about the distractions earlier, because that's what's happening. We're distracted. We're distracted with Klaus Schwab and whether Christina Freeland is in the next Davos meeting or whatever, whoever's distracting us. And Klaus Schwab just said, you'll own nothing and be happy. The distraction is from why we're doing what we do. And if you get focused back on why we do what we do, it's our kids. We started this conversation by me talking about my family's taking care of the same land since 1832. And so I want to spend more time focused on my three daughters than I spend focused on Klaus Schwab or, quite frankly, Joe Biden or Donald Trump. If you remain focused on why you do what you do, and there's no better answer than your kids, then you have the motivation to go do what it takes to make an impact for everybody else and the next generation. And if you're struggling with your own kids and they just chose to go somewhere, or they chose to be a psychologist instead of being involved in agriculture, well, everybody eats, so everybody's involved in agriculture. But the other part of that equation is that we have these wonderful youth agriculture organizations like FFA. And the absolute best part of the meeting I went to in New York, while there were a lot of good parts, the best part is the New York State Association for the FFA led the meeting Thursday morning with the opening ceremony. And I interviewed each and every one of them that were there. There were six. It wasn't like it was 60, but there were six. And when you start talking to these kids that are 20 years old and they haven't been told yet what they can't do, the
Yeah.
world is theirs to go make a difference and make an impact. So don't get in the way of the next generation. Don't keep telling them what they can't do because you're not allowed to here. Foster them, give them some encouragement, swat their behind when you need to, and get out of the way. Then we make the difference.
I like it. I like it. It's so easy now. My goodness, Trent, I used to have laser sharp focus. And then the pandemic hit. And
Mhm.
then even myself, I got pulled into it. And bread and circus, there used to be one every quarter. It wasn't
Right.
very frequent. Now it's a daily bread and circus, and it's so easy to take your eye off the ball, isn't it?
It is.
It is. It is. I'm like, focus, Tracy, focus, get to work. It doesn't matter. Oh, yeah. Crazy. Okay. I want to talk to you for 2 more hours on threat stag and everything you've seen and everything you think, but I know we're wrapping up on our time here. We'll save it for our show.
That's good. We got to leave something for the ongoing series.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'd come up with something for our ongoing series. So I want to ask you a few personal questions. I mean, your story and your journey and your work is all very personal, entwined with agriculture, but I want to ask a few questions. So first off, I'm not sure if you're a reader. Is there a book or books that have changed your life? I'm always curious on people's thoughts on that.
No.
No. Okay. Well, that was pretty straightforward. Is there
Oh, okay. I'm standing in front of, okay, this book probably is as good as any because I actually did read it from cover to cover. And I know the right answer to your question is the Bible. But this is the Encyclopedia of the Great Plains, and it tells me, and it walks through, including Canada, it walks through the development of the Great Plains of America. And so it gives you an account of what really happened and what was important and how community came together. And I think you need to understand that. The reason I so quickly said no to your question, I'm impacted by the people I meet.
mm,
I'm impacted by the Carl Stevensons who I met in Globe, Arizona one day, who just passed last year at the age of 104, World War II veteran. The books that I read are the people that I get to sit down with and visit. And that, quite frankly, is why I have this whole plethora of media stuff that I do, and being 2 TV shows, 5 radio shows, is I just love learning from people. And I read people because I just open them up and find a way to open the door. And boom, you can't keep track of everything they teach you if you're listening.
mm. I love it. Great answer. I love it. I love it. Okay, next question. Something, and you'll probably give me a list here. Something that you are fired up about, good or bad, personally, professionally, take that where you want to go.
Isn't that a bit redundant? Isn't that what we've been doing for the last like 45 minutes?
Yeah, but usually, and it's funny, you caught me on that. Usually, my episodes are not what we're fired up about. It's a person and their company. So, yeah, asking you that. But what is top of mind? I'll make you answer that. What are you most fired up about? Like, what is on your mind when you wake up? One thing.
How do I empower people to make a difference for themselves instead of sitting back and expecting somebody else to carry their water?
Oh, I love it. You mean we're supposed to do that? I thought
Yes.
the government takes care of us.
Yeah. You too could be from the United Kingdom, Tracy.
Oh, shoot. Oh, I'm sassy. This is probably my most sassy episode. Jeez, I love it. Okay, so that's good. Fair enough. Now, next question. Best advice. Oh, and you're going to answer this. I know how you're going to answer this. Best advice you've ever received. You can only say one thing.
Oh my goodness. My father, while I pay zero attention to sports and athletic events today,
Yeah.
my father told me when I was pitching as a youngster, he said, when you walk across that white line, it's all business. Get done what you need to do.
Mm, touche. I love that. That's powerful. Thank you. Now, final question.
I doubt it.
Well, hey, I have all afternoon, I can push the rest of our stuff if you want to carry on. It would
Well,
be
I
fun.
heard rumor that you had Amanda Radke coming up soon, and I was just going to filibuster until you just didn't have time for her anymore.
Oh gosh, I need to let her know that I admire her work and her podcast before I even ask her. You let the
Oh
cat
no!
out of the
All you
bag.
got to do. Oh, here's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Amanda, I was wondering if you might come and join me on the air. Trent Loos said you'd be too busy.
Mm,
And she'll call you like in 30 minutes and say, let's do it now.
she's pretty busy, that girl. I
Oh,
truly,
she's not as busy as she acts like. She's just a mother, a speaker. And I mean, what else? That's it.
a
That's all
rancher,
she
a
does.
businesswoman,
No, she
or
doesn't do that
an
either.
advocate.
Tyler does all of that. And
I
Scarlett, Tyler and Scarlett, her kids are, she's got her kids out there like little slaves.
I love it. I've just come across her, and I honestly, I love her heart and her mind and her content. I think she's doing great things.
Yeah,
So
I
if
knew her
she's
at
gonna be
8.
watching this, there we go. Kudos to you, Amanda.
I gotta tell you, it was Rapid City, South Dakota. It was a South Dakota limousine meeting because she's a limousine enthusiast. We still raise limousine cattle. We're mostly Piedmontese today, but we use limousine cows. And this 8-year-old young lady stood up with a group of 60-year-old guys and gave a speech about beef that was just tugged on your heart at the age of 8.
I'm wondering if that's Amanda or her daughter that can fit the
It,
description of both.
it's a clone.
Oh, a little mini me.
Yeah, except Scarlett is much more sassy at that age than Amanda was. And that's Amanda's fault.
Oh boy. Well, she has a fire, and you know what? I would never take that away from any kid. That's an
Yeah,
important thing nowadays.
I agree.
Okay, last question. I do promise.
Hmm. Yeah, I doubt it.
You took us down the last rabbit
I
trail.
know. I'm taking that one.
I love this, Trent. This is beautiful conversation. Words of wisdom. And truly, sometimes I am, I'll call it a warrior. I like to say I have that warrior spirit, and I don't like
Hmm.
injustice being done to any one person, any group, or humanity. And sometimes I see a lot of stuff going on and I go, "Oh my gosh." And it's so big. It's so big. And sometimes you feel like just one person. So, words of wisdom for people in the audience. And there's a lot of us that see what's going on and don't like it more than we let on. What would be your words of wisdom for that person going, "Oh my gosh, what do I do? I can't make a difference."
So I'm perplexed by the number of people that come up to me when I finish speaking, whatever the case may be, and say, "Oh, that was so good. I wish I could talk like that. I'm just one person. I can't make a difference."
Mhm.
And I remind them that this world, this country, was built by one person, one day at a time, making a difference. The biggest challenge that we have today in one person making a difference is they're afraid they're going to fail. Why
Mm,
are you afraid you're going to fail? You have to fail 10 times before you know how to do it right. So just keep doing it and make that difference because it is all about one person stepping up to make a difference.
mm, love it. Beautiful. We will end on that note. See, I did it, Trent. We'll just have awkward
Yes,
silence.
I'm learning just exactly how far I can push you when you just decide I'm not going to cave into this one. I'm just not going to ask him another question because he thinks I'm going to. So I'm learning.
We're going to go to dead air now. I'm not even going to wrap up. I'm just going to cross my arms and go to dead air. Oh, Trent, I love it. I truly did love this conversation. I love the back and forth. And I wish we could talk for hours. I know you're a busy man. If people want to connect with you, follow you, see what you're up to, how can they do so?
Loos Tales Media. Make sure you spell Loos Tales correctly, or you might get yourself in trouble. Loos Tales Media is LOOSTALES media.com. I'm on Rumble and I'm on Twitter, just Trent Loos. But if you just search Trent Loos, you can find me. Send me an email, my phone number. It's all out there because I am about people and I want to empower people to make the difference. That's why I make myself available.
Thank you so much for your time, Trent. And you know what? Most importantly, thank you for having the courage to say stuff that a lot of people don't want to, but think on the inside. I really appreciate it.
I might point out that even after you threw down the gauntlet, you still asked me a question, which was, how do people find you and follow you?
Oh, geez. Dead air. I need to win this battle. Oh, Trent, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and I'll be watching you and keeping tabs on what you're up to. Thank you, Trent. And you
See you
in the
soon.
audience, I need to take control of the conversation here before Trent gets me going again. You in the audience, if you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, like it, share it, and get it out there because more people need to hear this conversation because I know a lot of people are thinking about it. A lot of people are concerned. So like it, share it, get it out there. See you next week, guys.
Hey, how
Bye.
come the Jets have not done what they said they were going to do when they came back to Winnipeg? I want to know.
And there's the last question. He got the last word. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.